team, it's time for the Daily Detangler. So what makes a planet habitable? Do you know all the various conditions and temperatures and distances and size and atmospheric conditions and all that complexity to be able to answer that? Well, how about if you just say, look, you can't get too close to the sun because that's too hot. And you can't get too far away from the sun because that's too cold. There's a condition right in the middle that's just right. That's the Goldilocks condition. It's not too close to the sun. It's not too far away from the sun. What does that have to do with what we do with a catalyst? Well, I don't know about you, but I struggle to find the Goldilocks condition in the content that I create. And Catalyst was sharing this on his overview that he was providing OmniTracks with their routes to value program. On one hand, we have to be scientific, and on the other hand, we have to be simple. And how do we find that just right condition? Well, it's a balancing act. Everybody likes choice. If I were to say, look, do you want some broccoli? That's a choice. But if you don't like vegetables, or if you don't like broccoli in particular, it's pretty easy to say that's not just right for me. I don't like broccoli. But if I said, look, do you like broccoli or carrots? You could say, well, don't like broccoli as much as I don't like carrots. So, or I could say, you know what, in the big scheme of things, I don't like vegetables, but if I had to pick one, I would go with carrots for whatever reason. Choice makes us feel empowered. When given a few options, our natural impulse is to choose one of them. I don't know about you, but I'd rather have two choices or three choices and be able to pick one. And there's a lot of examples of this that I go through on a daily basis. I have to choose what to work on. I have to choose what to eat. I'm trying to lose weight. And these choices I sometimes wish would be narrowed down. I also know that as I work with content or concepts in what I do, that the very nature of me putting things out there is going to get a reaction. And it's very easy for people, especially outside of growth enablement, to not appreciate the work that goes into providing them a choice. And they don't see that work. And it's very easy to reject. Well, that's too complicated, or that's too simple. You know, that broccoli's not crispy enough, or I just hate broccoli from my childhood. It's kind of the same thing to me. Well, here's somebody who is like an expert at Goldilocks conditions. Do you know who this is? This is Malcolm Gladwell. He has written 7 bestsellers. Did you know that he writes at an 8th grade level? Now, I don't know if you knew that, but if you've read his books, they're pretty easy to read. But let me ask you something. Are his concepts simple, or are they complicated? To me, he writes about incredibly complicated topics, but he does it at an 8th grade level. That's an example of the Goldilocks condition. Sometimes it's hard to get through something, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes content can make people feel smart, empowered, and sometimes it can make them feel, dumb. I don't know about you, but when I was experiencing going through the different journeys of the mind to work through these concepts and going to customer, I remember I've told Catalyst before that he made me feel stupid, and that was a long time ago. 7, 8 years ago, but I just didn't think about things that way. And it was an interesting journey just to even accept what he was saying as something worth thinking about. And that threshold of getting too close to the sun, for example, that's just easy for me. It was easy for me to discount. And I had to learn how to appreciate the thoroughness and the depth at which the content was being shown to me in the discussions we were having. And it was a process to be able to have those conversations and appreciate it. So I don't know about you and your journey. And the paradox is, it may make perfect sense to you, but when we engage other people, it may be foreign to them and really easy to reject. Da Vinci said simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And for what we're doing in sales and marketing, I think people appreciate elegance and sophistication, like Catalyst talked on his conundrums. And the balancing act that he has as he works is this balancing act between it's theoretical and, well, that's too complicated, it's too technical, it's too detailed or too long, or that situation doesn't make sense, or those people that you're talking about don't relate to me. And there's so many ways that things that I build can be just discounted because they're not thoughtful, they're not disciplined, they're not integrated, they're not additive, they're not structured enough, they're not the right colors, they're not the right words, I'm not linking to the right things, right? And these are all easy to relate to and to discount what I'm doing. And my challenge is, how do I navigate that? How do I bring people into that and lean on the team to help make my concepts come to life and make my theories become more practical, or my the detail that I have more simple. And one of the things that it makes me think about is this balancing act between the abstract and the complicated. I think all of these are on the continuum of complexity, where we want things to be pragmatic. We want them to be practical. On our team, we don't appreciate the abstract. We want to beat it out through our principle of trust in the process and focusing on getting it right. Abstract doesn't tackle complexity. It doesn't tackle a level of complexity that Catalyst is dealing with. And simplistic is not useful. It doesn't move people forward to tackle root cause ecosystem challenges. And when we tackle ecosystem on the far right side, it's complicated, and there are variables, and there are considerations, there are biases, there are perspectives, there are a whole different level of process and structure and rigor and clarity required. So I kind of plot these out here as a way to think, okay, am I making things more simple than it really is? I tend to be on the far right side, where I can over-engineer, and over-engineering is an example of people not wanting to understand, in my view, of how complicated things are, because in the additive world that we have to operate within, I have to be synergistic in that. I have to be additive, and what I see has to be rolled up into what others see. And I can't expect everybody to know my point of view and understand what I'm doing with regard to roles or people or collaboration or teams. Those things are highly complicated to me, but To others, they just, want to have something practical and pragmatic for the time that we're in. So those are some of the challenges that I wrestle with is how do I make things more pragmatic and practical without over complicating? And what's the difference between that and useful and being useful and being thoughtful and detailed and being able to have structure? So when I look at these things, it's about connecting the dots primarily to me, where if I can collaborate with the team and I can share what I'm thinking, the team can help me not over engineer. By publishing my structures and publishing what I'm thinking, I can get feedback that makes sure that I can tackle the complexity. It may be complicated, but it's still also in a way pragmatic and useful. And the idea that of handling that complexity, and just like Catalyst has to do, he has to handle that complexity and not push it onto the client. And that's a balancing act. So as you go forward today and work through the complicated view of go to customer, and perhaps think about ways to be pragmatic and practical, to focus on the what and the why, remember that change happens one idea at a time. Ideas are good, and sometimes doing the tedious work and thinking things through and putting it out there is the pebble that's needed on the change bridge to move things forward. So thanks for your time today. As always, check out dailydetangler.com, and I'll see you tomorrow.